Yeah. So hi there. Hello everyone. We have to continue with the part that we are doing. The book, as in see, what we have to do is NCRT, both. I'll be referring to both. Like I'll be referring to both of them, and also my notes also. I'll share all my notes also. Don't worry. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm good. I hope everyone else is also good. Very nice. Yeah. So yeah, guys. So hello everybody. So we have to start with the chapter. I guess that is the organisms and population. Am I right? So we have to begin with the chapter that is the organisms and the population. Yeah. Okay. So last time we did the chapter of the uh, the neural, right? Yes, I think that is left, right? For you all, organisms and population is left. Neural we have completed. Yes. Okay, Komal. Thank you. Yeah. So see, what we have to do is that's like an EVS chapter. It's like a pretty simple chapter. It's like a EVS chapter. So what we have to do? Yes. Okay. First, we'll take up the organisms and population. So in that, it's a very interesting one. I'll share my notes also with you all, but first of all, we have to understand the chapter well. These smaller chapters, they are very important from the point of view of NEET, right? Though they are very small and we tend to neglect them for our boards, right? But do not do so, because I've been always keep on telling that, these are the small chapters like the EVS chapters and origin evolution of life. That section is what, matters for NEET specific. It doesn't matter for board much. It doesn't matter for boards much, but it matters for NEET, because in boards, you can study. It's like pretty much like little bit of general knowledge, and you can get through. You can get through. And as it is, there are so many deletions also in this ecology unit. There are a lot of deletions. Same for origin evolution of life. But when it comes to NEET, there is no deletion and specific things they ask. So these chapters are very important from that point of view. All right. So they're very important from that particular point of view. So we're going to do that in detail. Okay. We are going to do this chapter in depth, everything in detail. So let's start and let's continue. And this time, plugged in so that you will get a better system, like a bigger screen. All right. So we'll try to do that also for you all. Okay, guys. So here I do the screen share. So that's the we'll take the good things from every book, right? We won't focus on any one sort of. We will take the good things of all books. So the unit is what you all know. The unit is the ecology, right? That is the unit. Okay, seeing it on a bigger screen, right? Better. So in the ecology, this chapter 13, that is the organisms and the population. So this particular we are going to do. So yeah, this MCQ was asked once, right? Who is the father of ecology in India? So the father of ecology in India is Professor Ramdev Misra. So he was like the father of the ecology in India. Okay, that's it. You don't have to remember else. You don't have to remember anything else apart from that. Okay, just remember that the father of ecology in India was Professor Ramdev Misra. This had come in NEET once. This had come in the NEET once. That's just the introduction. So we have diversity of life. So in the diversity, let's start with that. So ecology is a subject, like basically deals with the, you know, it deals with what? It deals with the study of the interactions. So it's a subject dealing with the interactions among organisms and between organisms and their, abiotic environment. So it is the interaction among different organisms. That means among different biotic factors between the, biotic and the abiotic factors. So it's interactions, between the living things as well as between the living and the non-living. So that's called as ecology. Okay, what do you call that? That is called as the ecology. So here, as I said, we are going to try and mix up, it's like a hybrid module, which I always do. Take the good things of every book. We take the good things from the GTB, we'll take the good things from NCERT, we'll take the good things from USS, and plus my notes, and we'll combine everything. So that will be like a holistic model of learning, a totality model, where nothing is left. So, so I told you the word ecology. So the term ecology was first used by Rieter. So the term ecology was first used by whom? It was used by Rieter. But, Ernest Haeckel gave substance to the term. So it was introduced by Rieter initially. Who introduced that? Who introduced that initially was Rieter, right? So remember that for the objectives. But then Ernest Haeckel, was the one who popularized it. So it was popularized by whom? It was popularized by Haeckel. Okay. So, now we have to go to the hierarchy. We have to go to the levels. So what are the levels in this hierarchy? There are 4 sequential levels in the increasing complexity. So as per the increasing complexity, like starting with the least to the most complex, let's go in these different levels, right? So that is like the, we have the organism, population, communities, and biomes. So an individual comes under what? An individual comes under the organism, right? So an individual comes under what? An individual comes under the organism, right? So it is divided into the organism, the populations, the communities, and the biomes. I am an individual, right? I am a part of the population, right? I am what? I am an individual. I'm a part of the population, right? Population includes what? Population includes, the individuals. So what does the population include? Population includes the, they are group of organisms of a particular species. What does what? Population. So what do you mean by population? That means all the individuals of that particular species. So the lowest unit is what? The lowest unit is an individual. Then comes what? The population. So all the individuals like me, right? All the individuals
like me, of my own species will make up the population. And then when many populations unite, when several populations of different species come together, they form a community, right? So when many populations join, like populations of, every species, like populations of trees and populations of humans and populations of all different species populations, when they unite, it's going to form what? A community. And when many communities unite together, it's going to form a biome, right? Biome is like a huge, it does not have a limit. Biome doesn't have a limit. So a huge area is generally called as what? It's generally known as a biome. So how could we define a biome? We could define it as a large, a large regional terrestrial unit, right? It is a large regional terrestrial unit. So it's like a unit delimited by specific zones. So it is not having any zones. It's like a huge area having major vegetation. Vegetation means all the plant communities and also the fauna, flora and fauna. So biome is any place which includes the entire flora as well as the fauna. Flora means what? The plant communities, and fauna stands for the animal communities. So when all of them unite, they form what? They form a particular biome. So how many biomes are there? There are six terrestrial biomes, right? So there are six groups of the terrestrial, that is the land biomes. So let me come on the
Yes. Yeah. So I was just seeing your queries. So I was just seeing your specific queries, like we cannot have the video on while the screen sharing is, we can have only one thing on at a time, right? Either the screen share or either the video. We can't have both things on at a time. All right. So no worries. So we understood, everyone. This particular is only one chapter. Organisms population is only one chapter. In that, no chapters are mixed. Nothing is combined. So the lowest unit is what? An individual. What is the lowest unit? The lowest unit could be an individual. So individuals group together to form what? They group together to form a population. So all humans together form the population of human beings. And when many populations combine, what it forms, the next level is what? The community, right? So the community is going to have several, populations together. So we make the community of that area. And above the community, what we have is the biome, which is the largest biome. We can say the earth itself is a biome. The earth itself is a huge biome. So one example of the biome is our earth itself. So that itself is, can be counted in a biome thing. All right, clear to all of you. So this was just the introduction about the scientists, that ecology was introduced by Ritter, popularized by Haeckel, and Ramdev Misra is the father of ecology. So all these things matter in NEET. They all matter for NEET. Okay, so we'll go further now. We'll go to the different terrestrial. So we are going to consider the two levels. In this particular chapter, we are going to focus on two levels. One is the organism, and secondly, that is the population. From this particular subunit, I'm expecting like around 3 MCQs to come for your batch, at least 3 MCQs. Not from the ecology, only from organisms and population, I'm expecting at least 3 MCQs, right? So let's go further.
Okay, so that's that's just the overview, of the. It's like reminds us of geography, right? We used to have that all these things in the geography. So you can see that on the x-axis, and on the y-axis, yeah, it's kind of like geography, isn't it? Though easy chapter, like for boards and all general knowledge, but for NEET, I'm specified. I'm specifically, this for this particular chapter, guys, MCQ solving is very important. Specific things are asked. They may ask anything from small place they can find out and they can ask you. So that's why, it's like that. If you see, it's a chilled out chapter. It's like kind of a chapter which we can say, oh, it's so easy. So on the x-axis, there is a mean annual precipitation. What is the meaning of the word precipitation, guys? Rainfall. Precipitation means simply rainfall. So, yeah, so 50, 100, that's the precipitation in centimeters. And here you have what? Here you have the average temperatures. So you can see that, like in India, there are so many different types of the ecosystems, right? Somewhere there are deserts, somewhere there are rainforests, right? So here you can see, let's start with the Arctic and Alpine. So the average temperatures in the Arctic Alpine can go, sub-zero and will precipitation, include only rainfall? This was asked. Can you imagine once? I remember the AIPMT had asked, what does precipitation include? And what? Most of them wrote rainfall. The answer is rainfall and snowfall both, because both of them precipitate. So rainfall and snowfall both are counted as precipitations. All right. So that's one MCQ. So first is the Arctic and the Alpines, right? So the second terrestrial biome, we can say, or the ecosystem, that is the coniferous forest. You can see they have got pretty more rainfall and the temperature is also more comfortable. They're more comfortable. So you're going to have, coniferous forest, like, where you're going to have that in beautiful Dehradun, Mussoorie, Manali, all this coniferous. Arctic and Alpine, they're going to be more in the north, like Norway, Scotland, Iceland, all these places. The Alps, you all know the Alps. I mean, grasslands. I mean, no need to tell you where are the grasslands. You have some grasslands in Gujarat, Rajasthan. You have mainly grasslands in Africa. Africa is known to have Masai Mara and so many grasslands, So Kenya and so many African continents have grasslands. Even Australia has got grasslands. So grasslands generally see a low rainfall. So generally they have a, rainfall is less and the temperatures are quite high. Then we've got the desert. I mean, I don't need to teach you what is a desert, right? So, and then we have the temperate forests. Temperate forests are found in most of like places of central India and all temperate regions. Most of the species, guys, this was an MCQ. I don't know whether, let's see who will actually admit. Do you know IUCN biodiversity MCQ? In most of the species, how many species exist on the earth is 7 million. Robert May has given a logical explanation that around 7 million species exist, right? You all are aware of that. How many species exist? Around 7 million. And out of that, how many have been, named and, discovered, like, around 1.8 million. 1.8 million we know, rest we have to find out. So Robert, whatever 1.8 million species have been found out, they have been found out from which areas? That was asked in the MCQ once. And the answer was temperate forest. Most of that 1.8 million species have been recorded from temperate forest. Where are you knowing that? Where was knowing that? Tell me truly. That MCQ was asked once. That was asked once. So most of these recordings have been done in the temperate regions owing to the favorable rainfall and better climate and easy for species identification also. And then the tropical forest, tropical forest, even though I know they are the best, they are like the hot spots. You all know what are hot spots, but they are very dangerous to venture into, right? So we have the tropical rainforest, you all know, the Sahyadris, the eastern and the western Ghats, and the lungs of the entire world, that is Amazonia, and certain, the river Nile basin, right? So they are the tropicals. So tropics have very, very high rainfall and they have plenty bountiful nature. Nature is abundant here in the tropics. Okay, so yeah, so you can see the tropics, right? The diagram is, what is it depicting? It's depicting for the tropics. The B is for the deciduous. The C is obviously desert and the D is the sea coast, right? So there are several factors, we must remember that the abiotic factors, decide which type of biotic creatures will live there, right? So it all depends upon the abiotic factors. So the abiotic factors are equally important to decide the type of vegetation. They actually decide which type of flora and fauna will settle on that particular place. So see, these terms are given, which I feel are important to be described to you all. Yes. So let us go ahead, guys. Now, the word is ethology. So all these terms I feel are equally important for need from the need point of view. So what do you mean by the word, ethology? It's not ecology, it's ethology. So this term was coined by Hilaire. The term ethology was coined by Hilaire, but it was popularized by Wheeler. And this term, speaks for what? It speaks for the behavior of animals in relation to their environment. How animals behave. Animals obviously, their behavior changes as the season changes, as their environment changes. So animals are definitely relying on the environment more. The wild animals, even for the plants also, the behavior of plants, it changes even for the animals in relation to their environment. That is called ethology. So remember, this ethology is very important. Like that in the chapter of biotechnology, certain words like eugenics, euphenics, and euthenics. And many students are confused. What is this eugenics? What is euphenics? What is euthenics? I hope you know that. Because also those that come for the MCQs. Then the ecology, you all know, it was popularized by Haeckel for the relationship of plants and animals with their surroundings. Bionomics was given by Langston, and it was for the study of relation between the organisms to their environment. How do the organisms relate to their environment? In what way they relate? That study is called bionomics. Okay, bionomics is a study of that thing, how the relation. So these are all important for MCQs, guys. They may give you a statement that the study of relation between organisms and their environment is what, and they may give you options like ethology, bionomics. So then that is where many students get trapped because they get confused. So that's why we have to give more importance to these chapters. The major chapters everyone gives importance. Who's not going to give importance to chapters like neural and circulation and excretion? I mean, no way, But these chapters, this is where you can go ahead of the race, guys. This is the secret. If you want to go ahead of the race, if you want to go ahead of the flock, you don't want to score great marks in bio, here is where you should score more. This should be these small chapters should be your aim for going ahead. And then the environmental biology is called as modern ecology. So the another word for modern ecology is what environmental, it's called as what the environmental biology. And it was introduced by, Clark and Odom. So it gives emphasis for what on the physiological. What do you mean by the word physiological? The functional. It pays more attention to the functions. How the organisms and the environment. What functions of the organisms change with respect to the environment. How do they change their functions? In what way they change their functions, their behavior? That was the environmental biology, or the term is modern ecology. And then the word obviously biospheres, that all ecosystems on Earth together they constitute the biosphere. All the ecosystems. So you add all the ecosystems of Earth, and what is it going to make up? It's going to make up the biosphere. Okay, then we are going to a very important thing. Now this thing is also important for the question answers also. It's important for question answers as well. That what's the difference between habitat and NIC? Now this many students used to pronounce this word in different ways. Please pronounce it in a somber way. That is NICHE stands for niche. What does it stand for? It stands for niche. Okay, it stands for, the word is what? Niche. So who gave the word? See, habitat, everyone knows. Everyone knows what is a habitat. It's a place where an organism lives, right? Where we live, where we adjust ourselves is a habitat. But the term niche is very different. It's used to denote the role that you play in that habitat. Living in that habitat, what role you are playing for the environment is your niche. And this word niche was given by very important MCQ Grinnell. Who has given the word niche? It is given by Grinnell. So niche includes aspects of life like diet, shelter, and so on. So you should take this chapter in a very sporting way. What I believe is that it can be compared to human physiology, but you should take it in a way as in like your focus should be on the need. That I'm going to mark all the important things from every book, and I'm going to get full marks from this chapter for niche. So habitat defines the physical space of an organism, right? But niche describes how an organism is linked with the environment, right? So habitat in simple language, habitat is a postal address, but niche is a profession of that organism, right? Habitat is his address, but what is the niche? The niche is the profession. So that's how they both differ from each other. That's how both of them, like the habitat and the niche, they little bit differ from each other.
Yeah. So guys, so habitat is basically what, like habitat is a place, like, where we live, where you live, where I live is a habitat. And what role do we play is our niche. So I'll give you a simple example. Like, for example, a honeybee. Where does a honeybee live? Honeybee lives on the trees, in a beehive. That's the habitat. But what is the role played by the honeybee? Like, honeybee is a very important pollinator. It takes the nectar, it makes honey, it makes bee wax. So that is a role that she plays in the environment, and that's a very important role. So that's called as the niche. Earthworm, where is the habitat of the earthworm? Maybe the soil, sub-levels of the soil underground. But does it play any role in the nature? Yes. It has several functions. Farmer's best friend, loosens the soil, makes the soil fertile, helps to make compost. So that's a niche. So I hope you're understanding the difference between the two, habitat and niche. The word niche was given by Grinnell. Okay. So I'll give you the distinguish. I'll give you the different types of niche also, and the distinguish between both of them. Okay. All right. So,
Yeah. So what are the distinguish? What are the factors to distinguish between the habitat and the niche? So these are the important factors. A habitat is an area where you live and interact, and a niche is a concept of how you live. So habitat just tells where you live. Niche tells, okay, fine, you live here. How you live here? What way you live here? What type of food you eat? What type of role do you play? Whether you are day animal or night animal, right? Nature. Are you useful or are you harmful? What is your food? Are you vegetarian or non-vegetarian, omnivorous, herbivorous? That all comes under niche. So habitat, consists of different niches. Habitat includes niche, but niche does not include habitat because habitat is a, you know, one particular niche, one particular habitat can have different niches. Animals of different niches can live in a particular habitat. So habitat is all about, it depends upon what temperature, rainfall. So habitat is all about the abiotic factors, but niche is about the flow of energy. I hope you know the good old school days where we studied that energy flows in unidirection mode. Flow of energy is unidirectional, right? Whatever, solar energy plants convert into chemical energy that is passed from, you did that in the ecosystem, right? It's passed on from the, the producers to the consumers, and finally, does that energy go back to the sun? No, it does not go back to the sun. Okay, then habitats can support many niches at a time, but not vice versa. Habitat is a physical place, it's a place. And niche is not a place, it's an activity, it's like your profession. Like, see, a doctor lives in his home, right? It doesn't live in his clinic. So that's what is the habitat of any doctor? That's his residence. But where is the niche? The niche is, right? The niche is his profession is being a doctor, like, or a professor, or so his niche is going to be in the during the lecture or during, in his clinic. That is going to be the niche. What role is he playing for the nature? So habitat is what? Like habitat is a physical space, right? So habitat doesn't depend on certain species. Habitat is not species specific. Like come on now, in Mumbai, is Mumbai. See, Mumbai is a place, right? So there are many habitats. So is it only for one particular species? No, there are several species living. Right? Even in desert, can a desert say I will only have kangaroo, I don't have scorpions, I won't have cactus, I won't have this and that? No. Right? But niche is specific to a certain species. Right? Niche will be more specific. It's a more specific term, like a profession. No, it's a profession. So doctors are only doctors, like lawyers are lawyers and engineers are engineers. It is specific. So now we come to the different, so now see, this concept is very important. It was not given. Microhabitat. What is a microhabitat, guys? The immediate surrounding of an organism is sometimes called as the microhabitat. So it's an important concept to remember when working with, yeah, very important. When working with sedentary or weakly motile. Now, I would like to come here on the video for that.
The microhabitat, you know, I was just discussing you about the microhabitats, that it is about the sedentary, you know, when we are talking about the non-motile. Now, guys, many students have asked me this question, and I hope you will accept that even you had this confusion that you used to think that sedentary means what? Non-motile. Sedentary, there was one more name, if you remember, sessile. Sessile for animals. For plants, sessile is different. Pedicle है तो pedicellate flower, pedicle नहीं है तो sessile flower, है ना, वो अलग है. That's for plants. The sessile word, sedentary word, was often mistaken. It was often mistaken for animals, that these animals are non-motile. Non-motile, there is only one group of animal which is non-motile, that is phylum Porifera. So the poriferans, you know, they are non-motile. Who are non-motile? They are the poriferans. So poriferans are non-motile. Okay. But I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the sedentary. So what do you mean by sedentary? Weakly motile. So those organisms which are like, you know, either non-motile or either weakly motile, for them, microhabitat is more important. A habitat may be like an ocean, but that's a huge habitat. We should have microhabitats in that. So like, which are the sedentary ones, like Coelenterata, Hydra? You know, Hydra is then some ctenophorans. So coelentrates, ctenophorans, even starfish is sedentary. It's not free swimming sometimes, right? If you remember those sea anemones, they are sedentary. Okay, for them, for this concept, you know, that is more important. The microhabitat.
So now we will go back to the same concept, like the we've done the concept of the habitat. So the niche, what I told you, it's given by Grinnell. Many people still don't understand niche because it's like a dynamic, like which is understand. Which are types of niche? Types of niche, like the spatial word is very important for MCQ. Habitat niche is also known as spatial niche. So what's the other word for the habitat? The habitat is also known as what? The spatial niche. So it deals, you know, this spatial niche or the habitat niche, you know, it is going to deal with only the physical space occupied. It's only going to deal with what the physical space occupied. That is going to be the habitat niche. The trophic niche, what's it's going to deal with? It's going to deal with the trophic levels. I hope you know what is the meaning of trophic levels. They are the feeding levels. So who is at what niche? I told you herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, producers. That is the trophic niche. And hypervolumic niche is like a hypervolume. It is not. It cannot be defined. It considers many factors like both biotic and abiotic factors. It's something which cannot be perceived by human mind, right? They're saying that it cannot be even understood by the human mind. So it depends on several factors. So when many factors are combined, it is called as a multi-dimensional or a hypervolumic niche. And you know the niche, there are two species. You know, for every species there is a fundamental niche and there is a realized niche. What's the meaning of fundamental niche? It's that niche in absence of all competitors. That is called as a fundamental niche. And what is a realized niche? Realized niche is what? You know, realized niche is more realistic. A realized niche is what? It is more realistic in approach. That is called as a realized niche. So these are the two types of niche which are there. That is the Okay, so now we have to start with the major abiotic factors. So guys, what is the meaning of fundamentals of kya? When there are no competitors, this is an ideal type of niche. Is it there in nature? There is no such thing like ideal. Like we say, no ideal life without competitors. No guys, there's going to be 16 to 18 lakh students being need along with you. So without competitors is not possible, and there's no fun without competition, right? What's the fun when you are only running the race? So fundamental niche is an ideal thing. It's not practical. Realized niche is more realistic, more practical, where the competitors and natural factors will play a role. So let's look at the key features. Now this part is very interesting. So let us view at every level. Let's view at every level in detail. So first level that we are going to do in detail is yeah. So see, this is the organisms in population. Yeah. So we holistically everything we have to do together. So see, the word ecology comes from the word oikos. From where does this word ecology come? It comes from the word oikos, means house or dwelling. Right. So the word ecology actually comes from the word oikos, means house or dwelling. Okay, that's how the word ecology comes from, the word house or dwelling. So if they ask you an MCQ, which is the basic unit? The basic unit of ecological hierarchy is the organism or an individual, right? So the basic unit is what? The individual or that particular organism that would be coming under the basic unit. We talked about the biosphere. So we have to now start with the environment, the climatic factors. So let's continue from there. So the first is the temperature, right? First, let's understand about the temperature. How temperature is relevant, guys? Temperature is very, very relevant. I mean, it decides entire things. Like when we have to go somewhere, like if I have to go to certain place, like very cold place, the first thing I'm going to look at the temperature. That decides what type of food we eat. That decides what type of clothes we wear. We must have all gone to some cold place, right? I've been to quite a number of places where the temperature like in minus degrees. So that's the time when we realize how temperature is so important. Living in Mumbai, we take it for granted. So temperature is one of the most important, relevant. Yeah. So this is an MCQ, guys. When you read this book for boards, you'll see that, what temperature and all, but it is the most important factor. NEET, see this MCQ, most important ecologically relevant factor is what? Temperature. They will give you MCQ options: light, rainfall, temperature. So the answer is temperature. So the average temperature on land varies, decreases obviously from equator towards the poles. So obviously if you're at Rajasthan or you're in Sudan, you're in Central Africa, you're going to be in a lot of heat, like 40s, 50 also touching somewhat. And if you go towards the poles, obviously it's going to decrease, right? The same is for the altitudes also. At sea level, the temperature is going to be high. You go to mountains, it will decrease. So it depends upon lat and longe, latitudes and longitudes. So it ranges from obviously sub-zero in the polar to high altitudes like above 15 tropics in tropical deserts, right? So even in some deep can some organisms survive there? Yes, they, life can survive many places. And even I am a firm believer life is there in space also, there in on other planets also. Definitely. So, obviously, so species are related to their temperatures. Like, I mean, we've never seen apples growing in desert, right? We've never seen mangoes growing in Canada or Germany because they're temperate countries. So, is not caught everywhere. So obviously temperature decides who will live there. Why temperature? Because see, temperature affects the enzymes, kinetics, very important. Kinetics is a functional activities. It affects the metabolism, yeah, physiological functions. Yeah, so it's all enzymes. So a few organisms, can tolerate and thrive in. Yeah, I'm coming to these two terms now, guys. I'm going to go to terms like eurythermal and stenothermal. I'm going to these two terms called eurythermal and stenothermal. They're very important terms. So what do you mean by these terms? Eurythermal and the term stenothermal.
Yeah, anyone? So the word, guys, eurythermal means what? Like they are the organisms, and they have the power, they have the ability to survive. Remember, not in any range. Don't confuse. Yes, not in you can't say like they can survive in all ranges. No, that would be very unfair. So can they survive in any range? No, they can't survive in any range. So what they do is that they can survive in a wider range, like a better range. Like, like from like, chalo guys, I'll ask you a question. Chalo, let's ask you a question. Right? So the question is that, yeah, the question is, we belong to which group? Are we eurythermal or are we stenothermal? So answer the question, guys. Are we eurythermal or are we stenothermal? Humans. What do you all feel? Yuri, spelling is not Uri. EURY, guys. It sounds like Uri, the movie. Eurythermal, right? So we are eurythermal. That's correct. Very good, Komal. And Ishita, Himanshu, eurythermal. We are eurythermal because we humans are living in Russia. We're living in desert. We can live in a wide range, right? We can live in a 100-degree range. We can live in a range of around 100 degrees Celsius, right? Like, let's say minus 50 to plus or minus 40 to plus 40, more than 100-degree range. But stenothermal means what? They can live only in a narrow range. Why we are eurythermal? Because we are warm-blooded, right? We are warm-blooded. That's the reason we are eurythermal. Most of the warm-blooded, they are eurythermal. And most of the cold-blooded, they are stenothermal. I hope you know that. Right? So warm-blooded and cold-blooded. What is the meaning of warm blood? Like we keep our temperature steady. Irrespective of the surroundings, we keep our temperature steady. That's what warm-blooded means. And what's the meaning of cold-blooded? Cold-blooded means what? Cold-blooded are those, the cold-blooded organisms are those which constantly fluctuate their temperature. Their temperature keeps on changing with the surroundings. They also fluctuate their temperature. Their temperatures fluctuate along with. So eurythermal, which can live in a wide range, and stenothermal only in a certain range they can live. Like for example, the huskies, those dogs, they can't survive in desert. Penguins, the poor penguins, they got the Humboldt penguins in Baikal Zoo. Some of them died because they couldn't survive that range. So, the Arctic animals and all, they can live in a narrow range only. Right? They can't live in any range. Even the plants, some of the plants also. So like that, we have the two terms like the eurythermal and the stenothermal. So there are a lot of lists, there are a lot of lists. Yes, very good, Arya. Orchids and even bougainvillea, eucalyptus, they are stenothermal. Right? They are stenothermal. So you're right. Can you all tell me the other names? Like, can you all tell me the other names for cold-blooded? Anyone? Cold-blooded is called as poikilothermic. What's cold-blooded also called? One name is poikilothermic. The other name is ecto. Yeah, the other name is right. So poikilotherms or ectotherms or cold-blooded. So they have three names. They are called as what? Poikilotherms or ectotherms. So they are cold-blooded, guys. They are cold-blooded. The temperature changes. And what are the other names for warm-blooded? We can call it homeotherms or warm-blooded or endotherms or endothermal. Right? Correct. They are the homeotherms or the endotherms. Endothermal. So cool. So let's continue further. So this warm-blooded, cold-blooded was very important to explain. And we are eurythermal and then stenothermal. There are some which are stenothermal. Now, with respect to the salinity, everything changes. With respect to salinity, what is salinity? Salt level. Right? With respect, now guys, pay attention. With respect to salt level, everything changes. Now, those organisms which can tolerate, see, for thermal means temperature. Uri, matlab kya? What does the word Uri stand for? Which can survive in a wide range. So those which can live in a wide range, they are Uri. And those in narrow, they are steno. Now the same thing applies to the words salinity. For salinity, again, Uri means what? Wide range. Steno means what? Narrow range. But here it is not for temperature. Now it's for salinity. That is the salt level. So now as per that, I think the organisms are of two types. That is what are the two types? Euryhaline and stenohaline. They are of two types like euryhaline and stenohaline. So what do you mean by these words now? You all know now the plants which love salt. What are they called as? Those swamps and mangroves and all, what are they called as? Anyone? Yeah. So urihalline and stenohaline. Now here there is no thermal. See here is the word thermal. No, it is haline. So urihalline means what? Those organisms which can tolerate a wide range of salt concentration. They can tolerate a wide range of salt concentration. They are urihalline. And those which can only tolerate a narrow range of salt concentration, they are stenohaline. Okay. Urihalline means what? They can tolerate a wide range. And stenohaline means what? They can tolerate only a narrow range. All right. I hope you're understanding. So now, guys, now you all tell me, guys, that who would come under, we would be coming under what group now? Would we be coming under urihalline, or we humans will be coming under stenohaline? For temperature, we were under urithermal. But what about the salt? For salt, we are going to come under what group? Come on. I want everyone to answer. Yeah, there are so many here, I think. You all should answer, everyone. Okay, Komal, I'll tell you the question once again. We are under which group? We are the ones who can tolerate a wide range of salt level. They are urihalline, and those who only, under a narrow level of salt, those who can survive only in small level of salt level, they are called as stenohaline. So we human beings will be urihalline or will be stenohaline? Very good, right? Very good. We are stenohaline. We cannot tolerate any salt level. What if we drink salt water every day? Samandar ka pani piyenge to kidney will fail. We can't live under any amount of salt level. Kidneys will fail. So we are definitely not urihalline. We are stenohaline. Osmoregulation, excretion, you had that. Even you had that example where the albatross, marine albatross, it has got special adaptation. It has got salt glands near the nostrils. So even it depends on salt water, it has got some salt excreting glands near the eyelids and nostrils, that from there it excretes the excess salts. So remember these words, urihalline and stenohaline. Correct.
Yeah. So then let's go ahead. Very good. Yeah. So we are through with the like urihalline, stenohaline thing. Okay. Then what about the water? So we just explained you that also. The availability of water. So some like can survive without water also. Do you know, guys, there is one organism who survives without water. Who's that? Anyone knows? Kangaroo rat. So life originated definitely in water. So water is obviously important for life to sustain. For aquatic organisms also, water is very important because fresh water, salty water. So what are the levels of salinity? Right? So PPT is, what is PPT? Parts per thousand, like ppm is parts per million. So salinity is defined, in parts per thousand, less than 5. So inland water is what? Fresh water. So the salt level is less than 5. These are all important for MCQs. Huh? If it is less than 5, it is called as what? like, fresh water. If in seas, what is the salinity? 30 to 35. And above 100 in some hypersaline lagoons and swamps and all. So we've explained you the words urioline and stenoaline. So that's why, freshwater animals cannot live for long in seawater and vice versa. They can't do vice versa. I don't know whether you remember or not, let me, there was a thing called as the, if some of you all are aware or not, I am not sure. Guys, there was something called as the catadromus and the anadromus. Do you know that? Do you know there's something called as what? Catadromus and anadromus. So catadromus fish and anadromus fish, they go from fresh water to salty water and to lay the eggs. And when they lay the eggs, they die. Do you know that? So when they lay the eggs, they die because that's why they cannot survive for a long time. So catadromus fishes and anadromus fishes were there in the kingdom Animalia. Some fish go from fresh water to salty water to lay the eggs. And once they lay the eggs, they die. And some go vice versa. So that was there. Yep. So about the temperature, we've completed. Water availability, the same thing that I told you, parts for urioline and stenoaline. Now the obvious thing is the light, right? So light is obviously important. So light, plants use sunlight, basically photon, only source. So lights are important. But there are some shrubs and herbs, they have adapted themselves because see they can also survive under low light conditions. Why they can survive under low light condition? Because they're always covered by tall trees. No? So tall trees cover them, so they never get much of sunlight. So they have adjusted themselves. That's called as adaptation. That under low light also they can do photosynthesis. Animals also, for animal, light is important. Diurnal, photo period for foraging. Animals, foraging means what? Feeding. Herbivorous come out at day, carnivores at night. So for them, the light is very important because hunting happens at night. So many activities, reproduction, migration, it all depends upon whether it's day or night. Yeah, so the soil now. Now for soil, I would like to tell you something, very important. What is formation of soil known as? What is formation of soil known as? Any factor related to soil, what is it called as? Any of the factor related to soil, what is it called as, right? It is called as the edaphic. Any factor related to soil is known as an edaphic factor. So edaphic factors are those factors which are related to soil. Remember that for MCQs, all right? Edaphic. Edaphic means concerned or connected to soil. Okay, so these are the edaphic factors. And another one is soil formation. What is soil formation also known as? It's called as pedogenesis. What is soil formation also called as? It's called as the pedogenesis. So what is it called? It is called as the pedogenesis. So yeah, so soil also decides, weathering, soil, every soil has got different, like, heard in all this in geography, all these alluvial soil. Soil has different factors like composition, size of grain, population properties. capacity, pitch, composition, topography. So entire thing. So which type of vegetation, which type of plants will grow in that particular place will totally depend upon the soil in that region. No? It will depend upon which type of soil is there. So like you see, plants will follow the soil, and animals will follow the plants. So it's like all of them, they are linked to each other. Like we follow somebody on social media. So it's like carnivores follow herbivores, herbivores follow plants, plants follow where the conditions suit them. So the abiotic factors that determine the habitat, they show a lot of seasonal variations. So plants and animals have to adapt. There's no option. You have to adjust. You have to adapt if you have to survive. Survival of the fittest. Guys, whose theory was this? ये theory किसका था? चलो, come on. Let's see who's going to answer. Survival of the fittest ही किसका theory था? Come on, let's see who answers. Let's see. Challenge. Survival of the fittest was theory of? Who gave survival of fittest? Time up. You don't have to think so much. Charles Darwin, very good. Arya, Himanshu, Komal, Charles Darwin, right? Charles Robert Darwin gave survival of fittest. Second ही नीट में आया तो ये लिखना ना. Guys, it's the wrong answer. It is the wrong answer. Charles Robert Darwin का theory नहीं था, -1. That's why I say, this small chapters will trouble you more. Chapters will trouble you more. It was not theory of Darwin, guys. And you will say, that's why I say, give importance, give credit where it is due. Government textbook में दिया है. Survival of fittest is theory of Herbert Spencer. Charles Robert Darwin का theory था theory of evolution of life by natural selection. Theory of evolution of life by natural selection. Natural selection was theory. Darwin never told about survival of fittest. He included survival of fittest in his theory, but survival of fittest concept was introduced by Herbert Spencer. Are we clear, guys? This is why I say the small chapters, you should know what others don't know. Okay? Chalo, I hope you understood now. I knew all of you will shout Darwin. I knew that. I told no Herbert Spencer, you want me to write it? ये कॉन्सेप्ट दिया था Herbert Spencer, okay? Herbert Spencer. So I hope I'm clear with this, right? So it was given by whom? It was given by Herbert Spencer. The abiotic that we are doing this to be steady view for maintenance and what is the steady internal balance is called as what? Homeostasis. What is that word? Homeo. It's all there in the excretion and osmoregulation conditions. We want to maintain ourselves in a steady state. So what is that steady state called? It's known as the homeostasis. Okay. So we talked about the light, right? The soils, more detail there. So now response to the abiotic factors. So how are we going to respond? How are we going to adjust fitness for survival? We have survival, right? This applies to you and me both. Survival of the fittest. So this is a very important MCQ actually. That's a very important MCQ in itself. So how it is a very important. So there are three names here. Like one is and so this so to understand that, we should understand first that what is a regulator, what's a regulator, what's a conformer. So, regulators are those which regulate. They are able to maintain concentration, right? So, birds there are two types of regulators, thermoregulators and osmoregulators. Remember the name of the chapter was excretion and osmoregulation. So we are, thermoregulators, that is temperature regulators, and osmotic, like homeostasis, right? Osmoregulators. And then the cold ones, they cannot maintain a constant. So what are they not able to do? They are not able to keep a constant internal environment. And because they are not able to constant internal environment, they're forced to migrate, they're forced to, right? So because they're forced to do these changes, they are called as what? Conformers, because they are able to conform. So their body temperature changes with the ambient temperature, surrounding temperature. Even osmotic concentration changes with that of the surrounding osmotic concentration. So they simply conform. What they do is simply they conform. But some of them, they have evolved a special technique that they try to regulate. What do? They try to regulate, but up to they can, they, at a certain point when they cannot regulate, they conform. Right? So if the stressful is for a short, they will regulate. Beyond that, they can't, beyond their capacity, they are going to conform. And then there are other ways to do it. There are other ways like either to migrate or to suspend. So if the bad conditions, if they are going to remain for a period, then they will take some other mode. So, this was very important. Yeah, I just saw the messages. Anyway, it's fine now, I hope, right? Okay, so see, this is how it is. So these are the regulators. See, this line is a regulator. So why it is a regulator? Because as the external level changes, the internal level remains steady. They are not changing. So when it's a horizontal line, it is a regulator. This green line is for conformer. They are going to just conform. As the external level changes, see the internal level also fluctuates. So what are they known as? They are known as the conformers. And these here, they are called as the partial regulators. What are they called as? They are called as the partial regulators because they are going to regulate. They can only regulate, but up to a certain limit. Beyond that limit, they are going to conform. They will try to regulate only to a certain limit. After that, they are going to conform. Okay, so I hope you're clear with this part also. And then, there are some who are going to migrate. They're just going to go away from that particular place. Or some are going to just suspend. So the others are, simply by migrating. So there are different responses that one can show. So let's see who all come under the category. All birds and mammals are very lower vertebrates invertebrates are capable of such thermoregulation. Mammals are most successful. The main reason is due to their ability for maintaining homeostasis. So we are not only thermoregulators, even osmoregulators. Because 37 degrees is our mantra. Maintain a constant temperature at 37. And then we have the sweating mechanism. Remember in 11th standard, you had that sweating. Though even sweating also helps in excretion. Sweating is never mainly for excretion. It's mainly for temperature, thermoregulation. Okay, so what is the main role of that is for the temperature regulation? It is mainly for the thermoregulation. So what we do in the scorching summers, we sweat more so that our body cools, and in the winter we do the opposite. So that's all regulation, right? This is the way we regulate. In summers, becomes right? Concentrated because we sweat a lot, so we concentrate the urine. Remember, ADH increased during summers, anti-diuretic hormones. So this is all regulation. We pass concentrated urine, ADH increased, right? We feel thirsty during summers, and we sweat more to cool ourselves. These are all the things that happen in summers. The exact opposite happens because that we sweat less, we need more, rather than urination, I should call micturition. We micturate more, and ADH is suppressed, ADH not required. So urine is like kind of, more or like dilute. Okay, more dilute than the summers. And we'll feel less thirsty. We feel less thirsty. So that's all regulation. Plants, plants are basically farmers. Most plants, remember, they don't have this, the plants always they can't regulate, they're not regulators. They can't maintain homeostasis by themselves. So remember, most of the plants are not regulators, they're conformers. And only the and some invertebrates, they are the regulators. So conformers are like the ones who are like they have no choice but to exist. So see, 99% of animals and almost 100% plants, they are conformers. So they have to keep on fluctuating. They have to conform their osmotic concentration. They have no option. So they have to see the thermoregulation is expensive for thermoregulators. We are large energy. Remember, warm-blooded animals because it maintain homeostasis. It's an expensive thing. It's not cheap, economical to be a mammal. That's the reason mammals require the highest amount of energy than the other animals. Right? Small animals have a large area volume. So small animals loss or heat gain. Remember, this is all physics. Heat loss or heat gain. Small animals surface area to their volume because the volume is less, surface area is more. So they tend to lose heat very fast. Right? So they tend to lose heat very fast when it is cold outside. Then they have to spend more energy to generate heat by themselves. That's the reason, why very small animals are rarely found in polars. Why they are not found in polars? Because they tend to lose heat. And polars, you require animals which are fat. They should have more adipose tissue. Remember, adipose tissue should be more so that they can survive the freezing winters there. So they tend to lose less heat, right? So small animals cannot do that because of the surface area to their volume ratio. They will tend to lose heat more fast. So the organisms have some other alternatives also that are there for the survival, which we have discussed that is to migrate or to suspend. Migrate means what? Like, we go to Dehradun, Mussoorie, Kashmir, right? And these easy to Goa, they come to, they are almost migration. So basically, let's how to migrate from the stress. So that's what I was saying. No? So most of the migration is done by birds. Most migration to hospitable birds have to force, they have no options. So there is a Siberian crane, the famous example is of the Siberian cranes. They migrate from the Siberia, imagine close to Russia. From there they travel, like they fly hundreds of thousands of kilometers and they come to in Pakistan and Bharatpur, called as, Kevalado National Park. National Park in Bharatpur, because there are plenty of lakes there, fish there, favorable. So the ancestors have been doing that. So it's a migratory pattern for them. Every year, like, how flamingos come. So that's very important. Humans are developing their migratory patterns by and by deforestation and creating patients by that. Their migratory patterns are changing nowadays. That's why it's leading to one cause of extinction. So migrate is one, and the other one is to suspend. Suspend means what? Like temporarily halt. So the other way is more simply to the suspension. So no point in, so some enough to suspend their activities when needed.
Okay, fine. Never mind. it's totally, my range is quite good though, but good that a meeting is recorded. You can always see, right? So this little part, the small part is left, that is for the suspend, that is diapause and suspend. And what is this? Like in plants, there's a hormone which suspends all the things called abscisic acid. So abscisic acid in plants suspends everything, when the unfavorable conditions are there, it stops all the activities of the plants because it's important to survive, right? Growth can happen other time, but survival is very important. All right. So such things, we are going to continue as we go further in this chapter. So yeah, we try to give you a better system today, right? Okay. So I hope lots of new things you learned, right? A lot of new concepts, some important things you learned, which we were not knowing earlier. So that is what is important. Thank you so much. Yeah. So thank you all. Thank you so much. And I will continue this same chapter in the next lecture. So please revise, read this chapter, revise this chapter for the next time. We might take a lecture on Thursday. So I'll see you on Thursday then, most probably. Okay. So thank you then. I don't know. I don't plan like that, but I don't plan. We'll try to take cover up the best we can, right? We have to give the best that we can. I can't tell exactly. Maybe more to three at least, right? Because it's a huge chapter. No deletions for boards also, for NEET also. This will, yeah. Okay. Fine. Then thank you so much, guys. Yeah. Yeah. Bye-bye. Take care. Good night, everyone. See you on Thursday. Take care. Bye.